Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything. I'm coming at you with another Wargaming in Miniature video. In this video, we are going to paint the Harry Lee model. He's the sharpshooter for 148 Tactic. He's a paratrooper. He's 101st. Now, the first color we're going to use, well, if you haven't noticed, on all this series that I'm going to do all the miniatures for the 148 Tactics. I've already painted their flesh. And if you don't already know how I do the flesh, let me just tell you, I put light flesh on, then, or base coat, base flesh, then I do a wash with like a flesh wash, and then I go back over it with medium flesh tone, and I just touch up spots that I think should be highlighted. And that's done on all the models. Alright, so now the first color we're going to use on this paratrooper here, Harry Lee, is we're going to use green brown. Green brown is the color of the 1942 jumpsuit. The 1942 jumpsuit is the jumpsuit that they used when they jumped into D-Day. After that, Market Garden, Ardennes, all that, they had transitioned to like a 1943 jumpsuit. The 1943 jumpsuit is actually green. This game is supposed to be, or at least this game is set up to take place in the Ardennes. So they should have green jumpsuits, but I don't want to do that. And apparently the company doesn't want to do that either because they painted them up as 1942 jumpsuits. I plan to also paint them up as 1942 jumpsuits because I think that the brown jumpsuits look more iconic. It just looks better in my opinion. All right, so here we go. We're just gonna. I also primed the model using a spray khaki. And it's okay if I get it on the straps or any of his gear because this is just the first layer. I'm going to come back later and paint all those items on top. Alright, we're just applying it to the legs. Don't need to really pay attention. I'm just trying not to paint the boots, even though it doesn't really matter if I do or not, because guess what? I'm going to paint the boots later. Or the pack, or anything, really. Okay, so I got this jumpsuit painted green brown, and then we'll move on to the next color. I'm going to let this dry just a second. We'll move on to the next color. All right, now Harry Lee is wearing a steel pot on his head, and we're going to paint that the Tamiya olive drab. Now, the reason why I use the Tamiya olive drab instead of like a Vallejo or whatever is it's the right color. This olive drab is a very dark green, very dark olive. And it's almost like a little washy too, because when I put it on here, you can see the straps of the helmet shining through. All right, so we're going to let that dry and we'll go on to the next color. All right, the next location I'm going to go ahead and do is the boots. The boots are pretty much solid red leather because they're Cochrane jump boots, basically. So let's just go ahead and hit... Ooh, wait, hold on. I wanted to put a drop or two of water in there. There we go, just to hydrate the paint. All right, now let's go ahead and touch this guy. We're working with Harry Lee here. Let's go ahead. One good thing about the paratroopers are they didn't use gaiters. They had jump boots. There we go. And it's okay to get paint on the base because you're going to go in and probably texture the base. When everything is said and done. All right, now for the boots, I don't know if I mentioned this, we are using Tamiya's red leather. All right, and that's pretty much all it is, just hitting the boots. All right, let's let that color dry and then we'll be right back. All right, now the next color is a little odd. It is, we're going to use Panzer Ace's German Tincture 1, which is field gray. But this isn't really a field gray. It's kind of a really dark, I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of a dark green, but it's got like a light tone to it. I don't know how to explain that. But what the paratroopers did was they would take fabric from canvas that they had at the airfield and they would cut them up and stitch them over their knees and sometimes their elbows. But this guy has, well, first of all, every one of the American figures have these homemade knee pads. Okay, so what we want to do is paint or find that little extra piece of fabric that was stitched onto his knees and paint that this green color. Okay, that looks good. Now I also want to find his elbows where he added some green on the elbows. This model doesn't look like it has extra fabric on his elbows. Okay, maybe this elbow does. Yeah, that was basically just American paratroopers being, or using their ingenuity. To protect their arms when they're like low crawling and stuff, or their knees. There we go. So we're going to let those greens dry a little bit before we move on to the next color. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do probably the most important part of this figure, is we're going to use model color Khaki. Khaki is, it should be a little darker like this. I have a color called Khaki Webbing, right? Khaki Webbing from Warlord, and you can see there's some major difference. This khaki is closer to the color you want. You don't want this super light khaki. This would work if you're planning on bringing it down with like some dark washes or whatever. So this khaki is mainly going to be used for the musette bag, the canteen cover, and any belts, ammo pouches, canteen covers, everything. Not green, not leather brown. Okay, so now am I going to get much out of this color? Probably not, because guess what? I primed this thing with a khaki, so it should come out almost exactly the same, right? It's not going to be exactly the same, but, and I'll use the brush paint to fix any mistakes that I might have made by overpainting with the uniform. Yeah. All right, now this guy's got some ammo pouches on his belt. I'm going all the way around the ammo pouches. It would also be the color of the sling, believe it or not. I know this for a fact because I've got quite a bit of World War II memorabilia. And if you're doing the 1942 jumpsuit, then your gear is going to be khaki. All right, so we're going to set that guy off to the side and let him dry a little bit before we move on to the next color. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to use wood brown on the rifles and any entrenching tool handles. I don't know if this is the perfect size for this. Let's take a look at my other brushes. All right, so we got Harry Lee here. We're going to go ahead and paint his M1 using Warlord's wood brown. Painting the whole thing because I am going to be coming back onto it with black and then metallic. But as of right now, it's just wood brown. All right, and that's really all it is. It's just wood brown. All right, before we move on to the next... Oh, no, that's not true. We have an entrenching tool. All right, now let's set this off and I'll be right back. All right, now the next color we're going to use is Licorice. Now, any black color we'll use will be just fine, but I like Licorice because it has kind of a sheen to it. I don't know how to explain it. It's not black. It's almost like a blue that is so dark that it looks black. All right, so now the first thing we want to do is on his left shoulder should be the 101st patch. I'm just going to touch it up with some black. Okay, but the main reason why I got the black out was to run along the top of the rifle as a preparation for me doing a metallic. Okay, because I plan to paint. Now, a lot of people will just leave the rifle black like that, and that's fine. You could do that as well. But I want to give it a metallic sheen, so I'm going to put a metallic color on there. But I need to let the black dry before I do that. All right, set it off to the side. We'll move on to the next color. All right, now we're going to go ahead and use natural steel on their weapon. As M1 is going to use, let's kind of scoot that over a little bit. There we go. We're just going to drag that along the black. Leaving some of the black exposed. Giving it kind of a shadowy look. All right, I'm going to set that off to the side. We're going to let that guy dry. All right, now a few of these models have boot knives, bayonets, or what have you, strapped to their legs. Well, I pulled out this German camo black brown. That's the color I'm using right now, and we're going to go ahead and paint that knife. Handle and sheath. There we go. Set that off to the side, let it dry. I'm going to use Quick Shade's light tone. I just want to use light tone, just enough to give it a little bit of a shadowy shade, but not so much as to cover any of the details. But I'm going to put a light tone. I'm going to wash this entire model. And yeah, and I didn't thin the light tone down. It's full strength. And the whole model gets covered. I'm going to set it off to the side to dry. And when it's done, I'll let you see what it looks like. All right, now after the wash dries, you'll notice that it's darkened everything down. It brings up all the highlights, but, brings up all the details, I should say, not all the highlights. Now I'm going to take some more green brown, and we're going to go back over the fabric. Now we're going to hit the fabric in like raised areas where it will make the jumpsuit kind of stand out, and it will get rid of some of that dingy brown look, which I love some dingy brown look because that shows that he's been active, he's in the dirt, he's fighting the good fight, but I don't want it to be too much. So, like when you see a really dark spot like that, I'm going to make sure I touch that up. And when you do these highlights, you kind of want to stay in the raised fabric area. You want to leave the wash down in the lower of the fabric areas. See how I'm doing that? Now this is kind of a tedious process, but it'll pay out in the end. And luckily, this is not something that has to be 100% coverage, because you already have the green-brown undercoat. You already have the wash on there to bring out the highlights. This is just one extra step to make it really pop. Now, if you can see the fabrics being stretched, you want to go parallel with the stretch. You don't want to cross the raised areas. Remember, you're going along with the raised areas. Okay, so we're going to let that highlight dry, and then we'll be back with the next color. All right, now as you might have already guessed, we're going to go ahead. Whoa, I'm grabbing two models. We're going to go ahead and hit his gear again. We're just going to highlight the gear using the same color. We're going to use khaki. Okay. Mainly, we're just going to disguise some of the wash, like in between the straps here. See that? But we're going to leave a little bit of the wash showing so that it kind of gives you that look. And again, this is not a 100% coat of khaki. This is just the raised areas or the smooth flat areas. If you see like large areas that are smooth or flat, then we'll hit those as well. Okay, and when you go underneath, you're going to leave a little bit of that flap dark. Okay, just like that. See how that really makes that pack stand out quite a bit? Okay, we're going to do the same thing with the E tool. We're just going to go left or right. Don't know my left and right. Left. Center little raised area. Front side of the flap. And that's it. Canteen. Top left. Top right. Sides. Now the ammo pouches, you can just do them one at a time. And you don't have to worry about missing something again because the base color underneath is already khaki. All right, and that's pretty much it for the khaki, right? Wait. All right. Now he's done. We're going to set him up. Well, he's not done, but we'll set him off the side, let him dry, wait for the next color. All right, so now the next thing we're going to do is prepare the base for, we're going to flock or texture it or whatever. So I'm using U.S. Army green along the outer edge. It's a good neutral green color that will blend really good with your gaming tables. I always like to use green, even if it's a snow or whatever. I don't know why. I just like green on the bases. Now there's no need to paint the entire base, but I do kind of want to get over the edge just to make sure that there's no khaki showing along the edges. Kind of like that. All right, now I'm going to set that off to the side and let that dry, and then we'll be right back. All right, now texturing the base is kind of a two-step process. First process is I'm going to use my texture here, which is like the fine brown ballast mixed with some coarse talus and some extra just flocking junk is thrown in there. It's kind of a random assortment of stuff. We're gonna take I use a tester's brush because of this synthetic nature of it. And then I put some glue, some Elmer's glue or white PVA glue in a palette, and then I paint the glue onto the model, right? So get a little bit extra. All the way out to the edge. Under the boots. And I want to see a little white on my base. So I make the PVA a little bit thicker. Some people like to water their PVA down to get it to go further, which you can do. I do that on my mass production models. Okay, so we got PVA all the way out to the edge, under the shoes, under everything. All right. Then, instead of swishing it around inside there, I actually grab and drop. Okay, and I let it set. And I let the talus and everything soak into the model to get a good adherence. Now this process here takes a good amount of time to let the glue dry before we move on to the second step. But with the magic of YouTube, I'll be able to get it done in just a second. All right, now the next step is pretty much similar. What we're going to do is we're going to use Army Painter's Battlefield Grass Green. That's like my favorite flock of all time. And we're going to take our model here and we're going to use that same technique with the brush in the palette glue. And now I'm going to brush it on, but I'm going to be very gentle. I'm pressing it down into the stone, but I'm going to use patterns. Basically, it's pretend like you're camouflaging the base with Elmer's. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's not one. I'm not painting the whole thing with Elmer's, just patterns. Okay. I think you can follow along. And it's okay if a couple of the patterns touch. Just makes it one big pattern. Kind of like that. Well, yeah. Maybe a little bit more. I want there to be about a 2/3 coverage of Elmer's. I think that looks really good. And then what we'll do is we'll sprinkle, using our fingers, the grass. I don't know if you can really see that at the angle that I'm doing this, where I got the camera. But see, the grass covers the entire base, but it's only going to stick to the part that has the glue, right? So we're going to set this off to the side, and when that dries, we'll shake it off, and we'll be right back. All right, we're going to take a close-up look. This is Harry Lee, the sharpshooter. All right. All right, guys, this is my 7 148 Tactic Americans. Tell me what you thought about the painting of each individual one, and come back and check out when I do the Germans. I'm going to do the Germans individually as well. All right, and I'll see you in the next one.